Ladies and gentlemen, this is a very, very interesting information. The average millionaire in Singapore had $5 million each. That's a shocking number at 5 million, jumbo. So I did a deep dive and I'll tell you what I found. This would really surprise and shock you. As I said earlier, the average Singapore millionaire I've discovered has $5 million each on average. Now, that's a very surprising figure, right? 5 million is a very big number, at least to me, okay? Some of you say, I have 5 million so yeah. Maybe to you, not to me. 5 million is a big number. I'm going to do a deep dive for you and look at all these wealth reports. Most importantly, this report will deep dive to help you understand where our national wealth stands, where you will stand among all your peers in Singapore, how you should be growing every year, and where are the next benchmark you can hit. So I think everybody should watch this video all the way to the end, and I'll crack the reason why there are so many millionaires in Singapore, each having $5 million. Let's watch on. So UBS just released a very interesting global wealth report, and in that wealth report that's just recently released in July, the number of millionaires in Singapore has risen to 333,000. Okay, 333,000 last year. Okay, not even this year yet. 333,000 last year. And interestingly, while our number rose, the global tally of millionaires actually has fallen. Now, I'll be frank with you, I don't know their methodology, how they do, whether through survey or whatever, I don't know, probably not important. This UBS, their number should be quite true in that sense, right? So in this report, when they talk about net worth, it means everything that's owned by the household. So basically, if you own a house, there's $1 million, you have $500,000 of debt, then they include $500,000 of net worth, plus your cash, stocks, everything that is worthwhile. No intangible like human capital. I don't know what are some of those things are woo one, okay? But this net worth is basically your asset minus your liability. That means whatever you own minus away your debt. It is not clear in this report, when they talk about net worth, does it mean per household or per adult? So if it's per adult, so if a household has $10 million, do you divide by two, or you consider 10 million, right? So that part is a bit gray, but for simplicity, let's assume it's per household, because I think the available information in Singapore is only on the per household level. So interestingly, the wealth in Singapore over the last 13 years, since 2010, has grown on average by 6%. 6%. And that's a very interesting thing. So you go and check whether from 2010 to now, whether annually your wealth has been growing by 6%. If you have not, that means you are falling behind. If you have, means you are growing on par. And interestingly, the number 6% is on par with many countries. Many countries, as you can see here. China was growing 8%, but I'm very sure this year it went down tremendously. But some other countries, Kazakhstan growing at 9%, but I assume they start at a low base. But if you look at United Kingdom, US, and all this, they're on average a bit lower. So developed countries a bit lower, and developing countries a bit higher. But on Singapore, an average 6%. So you benchmark yourself, look at your wealth every year, and see whether it grow by 6%. On this note, I do tabulate my wealth regularly and see whether how much has it grown or fallen, and actually benchmark myself according to this number. I'm not going to tell you how I grow. So if you were to compound at 6% from 2008 till now, then each adult or each household, on average, our wealth would have grown by 100%, which have doubled. And this is just 6% compounding, and that's not a surprising number. So you see whether from 2008 to now, your wealth has increased by double. And if you have, you're on par. If you're not, then you're below average. If you're above that, then clearly you're outdoing your peers in Singapore. So in Singapore, our average net worth is about $500,000 Singapore dollars, slightly above $500,000 Singapore dollars. And that's the average level, right? So this is basically the total wealth divided by total adult. So if your total wealth, that means everything that you have minus away your debt is $500,000. That means you are on par, right? Now, of course, the older people, maybe more established, you are more, the younger, less whatsoever. But this is a very interesting benchmark of average net worth, okay? But interestingly, our median, that means if you distribute the adults and just look at the middle number, 50% of our adult has a net worth of at least 100,000 US dollars, which means that the difference between the median and the average is four times. This clearly means that there is a huge skew towards the very rich. a small group of very rich Singapore or Singaporeans, people in Singapore, have so much wealth that they skew the average all the way by a very extreme number. So clearly, our growth in our net worth have benefited the upper class a lot more. So some of you are going to argue that, hey, this is not fair, right? That kind of thing, right? So recognize that the world is not fair, okay? According to a report, while the average wealth has grown by 116, but our median wealth has actually fallen. So this is clearly a case where the rich become much richer and those in the lower wealth bracket has essentially stagnated over the same period. And there's some concern for the policymakers. I'm not a policymaker, I'm not government. I don't really care about this. Clearly, the policymakers have to think about this. So these lead to the conclusion to the policymakers and some of y'all who feel that you are who are aspiring to be policymaker or interested in government matters is that clearly our wealth inequality has increased significantly by 22.9% over the last 15 years or so. So it simply means that Singapore has a very serious income inequality. It doesn't necessarily mean that income inequality is bad. The most extreme income inequality were the communists, right? So everybody has same income, everybody has same wealth, but you know what? The whole country, the whole economy collapsed. So you don't want that to happen. So I'm a big believer that income inequality simply means that for those who are capable, you can go fight for yourself and become the upper class. And for those who can't, okay, then there's a chance for you to catch up as well. Now, this statement is going to be very controversial, but I think income inequality represents opportunity rather than something else. So make sure that you catch this opportunity for yourself. In Singapore, interestingly, the wealth of the bottom 15% actually falls in a negative 400,000 US dollars. That means there are people in Singapore and not insignificant. 15% of them actually has negative net worth. So it could be they are very rich, but they loan themselves to death, right? They borrow a lot of money, and as a result, their net worth is so negative that they become negative net worth. So this is quite a serious matter. And of course, I already said, the median will fall about 500,000. And now we're going to talk about those millionaires, that means net worth above 1 million USD. And let's take a look at this deep dive and who these people are and how much they are worth. Since the 1M65 movement is all about helping people become millionaires, it's important to know how many millionaires are there in Singapore, right? So in Singapore, if you gauge on 1 million USD, the number of residents in Singapore, their millionaires is 6.5%. 6.5%, is it high or low? Let's take a look at some other proportion. In Luxembourg, 16% of the adults are actually millionaires. Switzerland, 15%. Hong Kong and Austria, 10%. New Zealand, US, Netherlands, 9%. So actually, Singapore is only 6.5%. It's not really high, not enough millionaires. I would say that Singapore should at least overtake Austria and New Zealand, should be on par with Hong Kong. But unfortunately, we are far behind them in terms of percentages. And this is something worth noting. So before we start complaining why there's so many Singaporeans are millionaires, you take a look at the other countries, actually we are not that astonishing. This is where I found the amazing number, that the total number of millionaires in Singapore is 333,000. That's not the big number. The big number is that according to UBS, they all have a net worth of $1.2 trillion. So I was like, wow, 1.2 trillion, that's a hell lot, man. That's probably our whole country's sovereign wealth is probably around that number, my best guess. But the total net worth of our millionaires is 1.2 trillion. So if you take 1.2 trillion, divide by 330,000, that comes out to an average of USD 3.6 million, which is about close to 5 million Singapore dollars. That means the average Singaporeans have 5 million Singapore dollars. I don't know whether it's per millionaire or per millionaire household, but that's 5 million US dollars. And that's quite a big surprise to me. That's very high by my understanding. So clearly everybody say, wow, 5 million. How many of my friends around me have 5 million? First of all, let's take a look at whether this 5 million true or not true. I would imagine most of the landed property owners in Singapore are all 5 million and above. Okay. And we have got 75,000 landed properties in Singapore. So clearly all of them would fall into this number. But clearly from 333,000 to 75,000, there's still a big gap. Now we have a lot of high-end, high-value condominiums, and this will contribute to a net worth as well. And many of these condo owners, they have fully paid up their house and things like that. So clearly they have helped to contribute to the 5 million magic number. But still, I was incredulous and I don't believe this 5 million number. Then I deep dive further and I realized this number. Remember, I said earlier, the average wealth was about 400,000 USD, but the median wealth was about 100,000, which means between the average and the median is a 4 times number. At the higher level, which is at the millionaire level, it will be even be bigger. I imagine 5 times or 6 times. This simply means that this skew of 5 to 6 times means that the medium millionaire in Singapore, which this report doesn't say, is probably about 1 million USD, and the average is about 5 million. So it's a 5 to 1 ratio. Now, at 1 million, then it's not so frightening, right? So actually, there's a lot of people just met this number of 1 million. And basically, what I want to say is that if they can do it, so can you in that sense, right? So 1 million, not so bad. The 5 million is skewed by a small group of very, very rich people in Singapore. And Singapore, given that we are now attract a lot of family officers, rich people from China who are trying to escape the Chinese regime, and maybe people from Middle East trying to escape the complexity of wars and all this. Maybe even rich Russian. I don't know. I'm just saying that there's a lot of people coming in. I would imagine that all this will contribute to the skew. The average is 5 million Singapore dollars. The average is 1+ million Singapore dollar. So that's how our profiling is in Singapore. So in this, what's the key takeaway from this report? So this is my key takeaway. First of all, for those people who are millionaire in Singapore, there's nothing to howling about. Okay, I'm a millionaire, you're a millionaire, maybe a millionaire. Too many, 300 over 1,000. What is there to be howling about? Just too many. My thing is that you're just lucky that you won a lottery genetic gain. You're genetically lucky to born in Singapore. If you're born in Indonesia or born in Philippines or born in Africa or whatsoever, then the chances of you become a millionaire is a lot less. So in Singapore, it's just a lot easier to become a millionaire, and you're just one of the 300,000. So no big deal. Okay, nothing to be howling about. Second is that if you're aspiring to be 1 millionaire when you're not one yet, maybe you're young or maybe you're trying to work towards that, know that because you're in Singapore, it's not that difficult to be one. 6.5% have done it, 300,000 people have done it. So if they can do it, you can do as well. And this channel has taught you a lot of ways to be one. And we have a 165 Telegram group there that teach people other things, other ways that you can be a millionaire as well. So keep going, don't give up, don't lose hope, okay, on becoming a millionaire. The other information that you say is that the average millionaire has a net worth of 5 million. For those people who are already millionaires, this could be a number you work towards too if you're not there yet. So if you belong to the skew towards the left side, 1+ million, which majority of Singaporeans millionaires are, then maybe you try to work towards a 5 million, which is your next goal. There's nothing wrong with trying to work towards 5 million because everybody needs a hope, needs an aspiration to work towards. So 5 million is a good number to work towards. The last note is that for those people who can't be a millionaire, maybe are too old, too late, or whatever, teach your next generation how to be one, right? I've shared many times how to be one through 1065 movement. I've given quite a few formulas. I've role modeled myself. I show other role models as well. And there are other ways and other paths to reach there through our community. So what we are trying to do is to uplift everybody to a millionaire status. It's my goal, one day I can make 1 million people become millionaires. I don't know whether I will ever achieve it. I don't even know how I can track it. But clearly, I've been trying to reach out to more and more people. Go spread the word, okay? In this channel, this is really our aspiration. I don't collect a single cent from you for giving you this strategy, but clearly work yourself towards it. There are 333,000 millionaires in Singapore. You can be one also. So I hope that this one gives you a feel of where you stand, how you should be growing, and more importantly, how you benchmark yourself against all millionaires. And if you are already a millionaire, how to work towards it, and how you can advise your children to work towards the level. So I hope you like this video, and thanks for watching. I'll see you in a day or two. Bye-bye.